Welcome back to Orange Hat Reviews, everyone. Hope you're all having a wonderful day. So, while I was at Morbius, watching Morbius, apparently some things have come down the tube, newsworthy stuff. I will address the Will Smith resigning from the Academy in a video tomorrow that I will record after I'm done doing this review. As for this review, I'm going to do spoiler free first, as it clearly says on the screen here. I'm going to go spoiler free first, and then I will delve into spoilers. I will give people a chance to get out of the chat before I start the spoilers. So with that out of the way, I am now going to close out all other windows and get into the review. So I went to see Morbius, and in true fashion, there's a lot of people that don't like it. The critics don't like it. Objectively, this film isn't as good as it could be. There are problems, logic-wise, universe-wise, and otherwise. And so, yeah, let's get into it, shall we? So, spoiler free. This movie has writing issues. This movie has dialogue issues. This movie has cinematography issues. There are certain scenes that would be a lot better if they were slightly slowed down, as well as being lightened up a little bit or more defined. This movie does have problems. However, I actually thought the movie was pretty good. Jacob Ironside, good to see you. So the story does follow Michael Morbius, and it gives a little bit of flashback to establish certain characters, like his doctor, played by the brilliant Jared Harris. He is a great actor. I mean, Jared Harris in the movies that he has done, where he plays Moriarty in the Robert Downey Jr. Sherlock Holmes movies, plus many other movies where he has played characters, he does a great job in them. Jared Leto as Morbius, as Michael Morbius, the living vampire, the proto-vampire, and other names as well. Honestly, I thought he did pretty damn good. There are differences between the comic variation of this character and his live action debuted version. I do like the blood factor in this movie. The blood factor is up there. I like how this movie kind of delves into a very scientific look at it. It's a movie that some people will find is boring, but when it really kicks off, it kicks off in a good way. And one of the things I really like is that it's all the worst results often come from the best intentions. And this movie is no different. The writing issues in this movie come from, well, some very bad writing in certain areas that kind of interfere with the story, that kind of make the story confusing to those who have been paying attention to Marvel's cinematic universe and also the Spider-Verse. So yes, there is some problems here. I'm not going to specifically say what those problems are, because those would delve into certain problems, or certain spoilers, rather. Let me check my Discord here. Alrighty. Nothing going on Discord. So, yeah, this movie, I enjoyed it. Honestly, I actually enjoyed it. I liked the tone. I liked I liked some of the action. Unfortunately, like I said, they sped up certain scenes a little too much and darkened scenes a little too much as well, where you have Morbius moving in his super speed and whatnot in a darkened area like the sky, or like a nighttime skyline and whatnot. It shows that it doesn't really read well. That was one of the main problems that I found with this movie. As for any woke element, I saw none. I saw no woke element in this movie at all. This movie was not woke, period. Now, unless I am missing something completely, I saw no agenda. I saw no identity politics. None. Now, I do not read the comics, so if there was a race bent or gender bent character, I didn't see any of that. I don't know of it. And also, there was no reporting of it beforehand. So, yeah, when I saw this movie's trailers back before it was delayed, I was excited. Now, you could tell that there were rewrites because some of the trailer moments did not make it into the film. There were some deleted areas. Not really a spoiler. This is discussing the trailer. There was a line from the trailer that I really liked, stupid ladybug, where it says, or where they're like, when is it, or when does it become too much or something? And you hear Jared Harris's voice say, when the disease is, or when the cure is worse than the disease. Now, I really do like how they established that Michael Morbius is a person that cares. He is a person that is not in it for fame. He's not in it for glory. Now, yes, there is a little bit of trying to find a good name for himself from what I saw of Morbius in the Spider-Man, old Spider-Man 90s cartoon. He was trying to make a name for himself as a student that was trying to upstage Peter Parker. Ended up paying the price for it too. And but in this movie, it wasn't so much ego. It was desperation. Let's just say that. He was very desperate to find a cure for him and his friend, which they showed in the comics, a character named Milo or Lucian. And it is played by Matt Smith. Matt Smith saying he was confused about the kind of character he was playing. Honestly, that just makes me think that he really shouldn't have been cast. While he did a good job playing the character in the film, I can't help but think that it was a little over the top in certain areas. But for the most part, there are some people who will think that that is okay and or pretty cool. Now, there is a couple scenes that I would have done slightly differently, and we'll get into that in the spoilers section. But this movie is definitely not one you want to take kids to. This movie will scare the hell out of kids, especially in the one scene from the trailer where you see Michael Morbius fully vamped out and screeching. As for the story, I thought the story was pretty decent. Yes, there are some major continuity issues. However, the story itself, the main meat of the story, is actually pretty good. Michael is trying to find a cure for his disease that he has, and he ends up turning himself into a living vampire. And he has to consume blood or other means in order to survive. Now, the rest of the cast, the cast in this movie was very well done. You had Jared Leto, Matt Smith, Adria Arjona, Jared Harris, Tyrese Gibson. These are great actors by themselves. Plus, we all saw from the trailers, Michael Keaton is in this movie. However, it is post-credit scenes. They seriously did misdirects in the trailers, either misdirects on purpose or they were rewrites. I don't know, so I can't really say. Now, while watching this movie, I will say that I enjoyed it. I got a couple chuckles here and there. There was some clever writing. However, in other areas, the writing was kind of... It seemed like it didn't belong in certain scenes, and it could have fit better in another or in a different scene somewhere else. There's a scene that is in the trailer where a cop is unloading at Morbius, and it slows down and shows the bullets whipping by. Honestly, because I know so much about law enforcement and stuff because of family being in law enforcement, it's like, well, I can understand why the cop would open fire, but he's not supposed to. Yeah, Morbius ran from the cops, but you don't unload on him from the cops. Now, does that make that scene woke or taking a stab at bad cops or whatever? No. It just shows that this cop is reacting to something that he is not used to seeing. And honestly, I would say that if any other person thinks that they wouldn't react like that, I'd call them a liar. The one thing that I really do like about this movie is that it is not woke. I cannot stress that enough. It is refreshing to go into a theater and see a movie that has zero wokeness. Now, does that mean that the movie is good? From a subjective standpoint, yes. From an objective standpoint, no, it does not. An objective standpoint where there's no bias, you are looking at this movie and deconstructing it, but there are still problems. Problems like inconsistencies with the greater universal story. And there are writing issues, like I said. There are some CGI issues that could have been touched up a little bit more. And there are lighting and cinematography issues. This movie does have its problems, but for the most part, it is a solid film. I would give it objectively a 7 out of 10. Subjectively, I will give it a 9 out of 10. I enjoyed this film. Moviegoer, it's a 10 out of 10. I was seeing everybody in the theaters that I was at, they were all glued to that screen. Their eyes were glued to that screen. Yeah, I had a couple of kids kind of chatting it up a little bit. And some of the parts that they considered boring, I turned my head, and that seemed to indicate that they should shut up, and they did. So thank you for that. As for this movie and its problems, they're really, honestly, Hey, lovely Sherry and Jacob Ironside. It is good to see you both. I'm just finishing up with the spoiler-free for Morbius, and I will be moving into spoiler territory in the next, where am I? In the next 45 seconds. So, yes, objectively, this film is a 7 out of 10. Scrapes by with a pass. The reason why the critics didn't like it is because it's not woke enough. It's boring. It's so bad because it's not woke at all. I called it, like I do so many times, that Rotten Tomatoes is never to be trusted again. Because honestly, they don't know what they're doing. And if they did, they would honestly be a lot more objective. The critics hate this movie for a reason, and it's because it's not woke. And that is a wonderful thing. So, yes, objectively 7 out of 10, subjective 9 out of 10, moviegoer 10 out of 10. So I am going to start moving into the spoilers. So if my view count goes down, that is okay. I am thankful for those who tuned in to the spoiler free. So let me just switch the banner. I am switching it over to spoiler territory, folks. So yes, spoilers coming in the next 5 to 10 seconds. I shall give you all a chance to head out. Okay, spoiler, you have all been warned. For those of you who are staying in, thank you so much. So yes, they have a big fight scene on YouTube. Wow, I haven't seen a good Marvel fight like that since season 1 of Daredevil. This movie has some pretty good fight scenes. I will say that the fight scenes between Morbius and the bad guy that they showed none of in the trailers. I honestly got to say they did a good job with keeping the bad guy secret in what goes on. They did a good job showing Morbius going up against other people, but they did another good job at showing or not showing the bad guy. So yes, the bad guy is his friend Milo Lucian, played by Matt Smith. And one of the things that he went over the top. He relished in the power that he had, where he learned or where he snuck the serum that Morbius took, because they're both suffering from the same disease. The continuity issues that I spoke of come from the main or from the post-credit scenes or the mid-credit scenes. The mid-credit scenes are Adrian Toomes showing up in Morbius's universe. The only real problem is that doesn't make sense to what happens in Spider-Man No Way Home, because you also see the tear, or that tear in the universe, the purple tear that was part of Strange's botched spell, where they're all coming through and I can't stop them. Well, why is Adrian Toomes kicked out of his own universe and ending up in a different universe? The spell that fixed everything was supposed to make everyone forget who Spider-Man is. So all that should have happened to Michael Keaton is he should have forgotten who Spider-Man was. Also, how did he have his suit, his vulture suit? Because there's the other scene where Michael Morbius meets up with him in the mid-credit scene, and they're talking about Spider-Man in a different universe. So they're saying that Spider-Man is apparently in this universe as well. So I'm wondering, is it going to be the Tobey verse, or is this the Garfield verse, or is this another Tom Holland verse? And it's definitely the Venom verse, because they mentioned Venom indirectly. The scene from the scene from the trailers where he goes, "I am Venom." And then he's like, "No, it's just your friendly doctor, Michael Morbius." That is not in the movie. Him saying, "I am Venom," and then hissing at the guy, that is in the movie. The special effects, the digital effects, they do a decent job. They actually show you incomplete digital effects in the trailer. So they did tighten up the effects and make them more specific in the movie. Because when he goes full vamp in the trailer and you see him screeching, you don't see his beard. You don't see his goatee. In the movie, it's still there, even in his full vamp mode. And I honestly think that is pretty cool. The love interest in this movie, played by Adria Arjona, she actually played this movie very well, or played her role very well of Martine, whatchamacallit, Bancroft. Now, this movie is a tragic movie. It shows that Michael Morbius is he does the learning curve in this movie. And I really do like how they show the learning curve, how he is able to sense and pick up on. Just had a freaking ladybug land on me. But anyway, how he's able to sense things with the echolocation, but also he's able to feel the different air currents around him, and he can lift himself off the ground with those and whatnot. So when a train is coming, it's pushing air forward as well. He's able to pick up on that and take off in flight. He's able to manipulate air current a little bit, but not enough. I really do like how they did that. When he's jumping through the cities to get to his girlfriend who has been taken by his friend. One second. Had to sneeze. Sorry about that. So yes, when he catches up to his girlfriend there, or his friend, Martine, and she's dying, she decides to give him a kiss, but also bites his lip, causing some of his blood to drip into her mouth, where she licks the blood and swallows it a little bit. So you know that she's taking in some of his vampirism. I knew that was going to happen. And then he feeds on her in order to put himself in his primal rage to go after his friend who had basically injured her enough to where she was dying. And after he is flying away near the end of at the end of the film, using the bats to create an air current around him, you see her eyes open and go red like his. But so you know that she is a vampire of sorts. She's either going to be a proto-vampire like him or something different. We don't know. But I have a feeling it will be a part of a sequel if this movie makes bank. And I'm hoping it actually does, because I actually did like this movie. I liked Morbius. As I said, objectively, this film has problems. Because tying in with the other universes, with the Spider-Man film and having Tomb show up in this universe, it doesn't make sense. Plus the special effects of him traveling through the city very fast, you can't follow it. So that's where the digital effects boys screwed up. They made it too fucking fast. And I'm sorry for swearing, but it is kind of frustrating. One of the cooler things that they did in this movie was they gave a kind of like a first-person view mode for when he was on the ship, where you see his hands crawling and you kind of are, it's like seeing through his eyes, and while he's on the prowl, or when he first becomes the vampire. That is pretty cool. I honestly thought that was pretty cool. This movie would make one heck of a open travel game, kind of like the Spider-Man games where you're traveling through the city, saving a bunch of people, and then you can also do the quests and whatnot and the story mode. They would make a killing if they do that with this movie. Honestly, they could go so far with a video game that I think that it would be a good idea for them to do it. Sony, get PlayStation on this, because I guarantee you will make a game that is extremely well if you do it right. Make it like a Spider-Man game where you can fly throughout the city and build up your vampire points and whatever, but definitely do it, man, guys, because I guarantee you that would be one heck of a game. Kamen Rider, the movie, I honestly thought it had its problems, but it was still enjoyable. I'm going over spoilers now, so if you do not want to be spoiled, you might want to kick rocks, because I'm still discussing spoilers. The one thing I did like about this movie is they went the anti-hero route, but the one thing I would have changed, instead of having him feed like normal vampires feed, biting and ripping into people, he didn't do that originally. Morbius's hands were the source of how he fed, where he grabbed onto somebody and he had things on his hands that fed off of the plasma, or that took in plasma from hosts. That's how he fed. Where in the movie they went full vampire route, where he's biting into him and he's ripping in. Now, I like how they do the synthetic plasma, the blue plasma, and the red blood. That was pretty cool, because they made it very nice and scientific. So that was also a very good thing that they did. This movie, like I said, folks, it's good to a point. However, they should have tightened up the cinematography with the digital shots, and they could have lightened up the digital shots and slowed them down. That is the main problem with this film. If they would have done that, this film would have been about an 8 out of 10 to an 8.5 out of 10, objectively. However, because they had some writing issues, they had story issues, and they had the digital effects cinematography issues, this movie drops to a 7 objectively. It's a 9 out of 10 subjectively. I enjoyed this film. I really liked it. I will probably buy it eventually when it comes out. Moviegoer, as I said, it's a 10 out of 10. This movie is very enjoyable. I really enjoyed it. And honestly, I now know why Rotten Tomatoes didn't like it, why the critics hate it. It's not woke. Morbius isn't a woke movie. Unless I am missing something, which I don't know if I am or not, but I do know that I saw no agenda in this movie. There was no political agenda. There was nothing like that in this movie. And I think that is refreshing, but it does not give this movie an automatic pass as being good. Just because a movie's not woke doesn't mean it's automatically good. However, this movie does pass with a 7 out of 10. 6.5 is where you pass by the skin of your teeth in objective scores. But 7 out of 10 it just gets you over the hump. So, yeah, this movie, honestly, I'm looking forward to where they go with it. Yeah, they screwed up with Michael Keaton's involvement and Adrian Toomes and whatnot, and the Vulture suit. So yes, they're in the Venom verse. They're in the Venom universe where Venom is existing. So yeah, and apparently Spider-Man, or there's a version of Spider-Man in that universe as well. So I'm looking forward to seeing where this goes and how it plays out. I'm looking forward to seeing how the character of Martine Bancroft plays out, because now that she is a vampire of some sort, will Morbius seek her out, or will she become like his friend Milo and go completely dark and ending up having to be killed? It does make you wonder. So anyway, folks, that's going to be my review. Objective, 7 out of 10. They screwed up with a lot of digital problems and speedy or super speed problems and whatnot, plus the digital effects, like I said, and some of the acting and whatnot. But for the most part, and the inconsistencies with the story, but for the most part, this movie is a 9 out of 10 subjectively. I liked Morbius. Now, if that doesn't, or if that makes people pissed off or wanting to dislike this video, okay, but I actually liked it. So I'm not going to lie, I'm giving it its fair shake. And to those who think that I do not give a movie a fair shake, ask yourself, why did I like this film? It wasn't just because there was no lack of, or there was a lack of wokeness. I liked how the film, for the most part, was executed. Sure, there are problems, but what movie doesn't have them? Anyway, that is the review, folks. Thank you so much for tuning in. Like, comment, subscribe, share, all that jazz. Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. What did you think of Morbius if you have seen it? Spoiler, or keep the spoilers to a minimum for at least the weekend, and then discuss in the comment section below. Thank you so much for tuning in. Norris, good to see you. Ironside, Jacob Ironside. Thank you to Cayman Rider. Lovely Sherry. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Anyway, folks, this has been Orange Hat Reviews. And always remember to stay humble.